You are watching the National News Desk, America's News Now.
And people just don't get it. They don't understand how we're in this situation for a second time. It is shaking the confidence, quite frankly, in our institutions.
The latest on a second assassination attempt on Donald Trump and what we know about when the former president will address what happened in his first live remarks. And Social Security eligibility, why hundreds of thousands of workers have received no benefits despite paying into the system, and the change that may be coming for them. Then, will TikTok survive in the United States into next year? The latest from the courtroom as the social media company takes on the federal government. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Right now, North and South Carolina being battered by tropical storm-like conditions. As a developing tropical depression, it's making its way toward the coast. Over the next 3 days, flash flood warnings in effect. The worst of it is in the area surrounding Wilmington, North Carolina. The National Hurricane Center predicts between 6 and 8 inches of rain, up to a foot in some places right off the coast. While in the Atlantic, tropical depression Gordon is weakening. Forecasters say wind shear and dry air is hindering that system from developing. For now, there is no threat to any islands or the U.S. And tonight, more details emerging in that shocking second attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump over the weekend. The Secret Service says the suspected shooter never actually fired his weapon, but that suspect, Ryan Routh, pictured here, has been charged with 2 gun-related crimes after being spotted with the rifle hiding in the bushes at Trump's golf course in Florida. Right now, we're learning about the political leanings of the would-be shooter and his possible motivations. But we begin with the National Desk's Kara Duffy in West Palm Beach with what we know about how this close encounter unfolded, activating the Secret Service for the second time in just 9 weeks.
Former President Donald Trump was between the 5th and 6th hole of Trump International when this all went down around 1:30 yesterday afternoon. Officials say Routh was armed with an AK-47 style rifle. According to investigators, he got within 300 to 500 yards of the former president. A Secret Service agent who was 1 hole ahead of Trump noticed the barrel of a rifle sticking through a fence. Here's what authorities say happened next.
He noticed that the rifle was pointed out. Our agents engaged. We are not sure right now if the individual was able to take a shot at our agents.
And he was able to spot this rifle barrel sticking out of the fence and immediately engage that individual, at which time the individual took off.
The Secret Service fired 4 to 6 shots at the gunman before he ran off, leaving behind some evidence. Investigators found the AK-47 style gun and 2 backpacks, inside ceramic tiles and a GoPro camera. A witness told deputies they saw the gunman run out of the bushes and hop into a black Nissan. The witness then took a photo of that vehicle and license plate to give to deputies. A license plate reading device picked up the car about 30 minutes north from here in Martin County. That's where deputies stopped Routh and took him into custody.
That was Kara Duffy reporting. And the former president has been posting on social media. He's been posting a range of reactions to the attack, everything from thanking the Secret Service agents who helped protect him to blaming the attempt on what he called false statements made by his political opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris. Trump also announced he will go live on X Spaces to talk about what happened tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. As we anticipate those remarks, law enforcement working very quickly now to piece together what we know about the suspected shooter, 58-year-old Ryan Routh. National correspondent Matt Gelka joining us now with a look at his criminal history and his questionable political leanings.
If he's a lone gunman, President Trump is that much safer because we have him. But if he's part of a conspiracy, then this whole thing really takes on a very ominous tone.
Law enforcement will now try and connect the dots on Ryan Wesley Routh. Routh spent most of his life in North Carolina before moving to Hawaii and has a decades-long criminal history with more than 100 charges, including possessing a weapon of mass destruction felony because he owned a fully automatic machine gun.
We heard the news today, and it's just been very surprising.
Neighbors near Routh's Hawaii home said he was kind, The truck in the driveway of his house has a Biden-Harris bumper sticker, with his social media post painting a picture of a man who was politically all over the place. A 2020 post from a now-suspended X account allegedly belonging to Routh says he voted for Trump in 2016 but grew disappointed and that he'd be glad when Trump was gone. He wrote democracy is on the ballot in April of this year in a post supporting President Biden. He made nearly 20 small donations to Democratic fundraiser Act Blue between 2019 and 2020.
This conflict is definitely black and white. This is about good versus evil.
He also gave multiple interviews, including this one from 2022, about his seemingly obsessive support for Ukraine. He posted that he was willing to die fighting against Russia. He traveled to Kyiv in 2022 and made multiple attempts to recruit Afghan fighters to fight for Ukraine. Former FBI Special Agent Kenneth Gray says investigators will have to exhaust every possibility to try and crack why and how Routh was able to get so close to the former president.
Look back at John Hinckley. John Hinckley shot Ronald Reagan because he wanted to impress Jodie Foster. It doesn't always have to make sense.
Federal officials who obtained the suspect's cell phone data allege that he was camping out around the golf course for almost 12 hours, lying in wait for the former president. For the National News Desk in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
All right, Matt, thank you. And Houston area schools sheltered in place while local neighborhoods were evacuated this morning when a pipeline exploded in LaPorte, Texas. Some homes in the area did catch fire after a giant plume of fire began just before 10 a.m. Central Time. It is unknown what caused the explosion. Many companies have gas and chemical pipelines in the area. We know that. About 5,000 customers are now currently without power. 2 police officers remain hospitalized in Iowa today. The pair exchanged gunfire with a suspect who did not follow police instructions after crashing their vehicle early this morning. Des Moines police say the suspect violently struggled with the officers before drawing a weapon and shooting at them. 3 other officers returned fire, that suspect then dying at the scene. Those 3 are on administrative leave with an investigation into the shooting underway. All classes at Clark State College in Springfield, Ohio will be held virtually this week, and all on-campus activities have been canceled. This after college officials say they received separate threats on both Saturday and Sunday. First, an email said a shooting would happen, then a bomb hoax was sent in. The FBI is looking into both threats, but say neither one at this point looks credible. A big change in Social Security could impact more than 300,000 people across Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. Right now, a congressional bill is on the table that would eliminate current caps on payouts to public workers who for decades were eligible for pensions, but not Social Security, despite having paid into the system. The National Desk's James Pilcher is in Cincinnati with a look at the proposed bill and its potential impact.
Melissa Johnson has taught kindergarten for a public school in Warren County for 20 years and worked in the private sector for 20 years before that. She provided us these pictures. Under a provision regarding Social Security, however, she won't get the full benefits she would normally be owed for her time before entering education. A shortfall, she says, would be $2,000 a month when she retires next year.
When I saw the figures of what I was going to get versus what I would have received had I not been a teacher was mind-blowing.
The caps on such benefits impact public employees ranging from police officers to firefighters, teachers, and others. Under one program called the Windfall Elimination Provision, more than 213,000 recipients or their families are affected in Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. And those impacted by another provision called the Government Pension Offset total more than 121,000 in the 3 states. Congressman Greg Landsman is leading an effort to force a vote on a new bill that would eliminate such caps for former public workers entering retirement, meaning if they paid into Social Security at any time, they'd get those full benefits back with no caps. The new payments would cost an additional $2 billion nationwide over 10 years. Landsman is trying to collect 218 signatures in Congress to bring the bill to a vote over objections from Republican leadership. He has about 170, saying it needs to be done on behalf of those who gave their lives to public service.
They're trying to pay all their bills and be able to retire with dignity, and this would make a huge difference, and Congress just has to bring it up for a vote.
In Cincinnati, I'm James Pilcher.
James, thank you. The strike by more than 30,000 Boeing workers continues now in its fourth day. The plane manufacturer and the union are set to resume talks over a labor contract tomorrow. The workers want bigger raises and to reinstate a defined benefit pension plan. Boeing says it's eager to return to the negotiating table and that it is committed to taking care of its employees. Coming up, 3 major wildfires burn around Los Angeles, but are there more this year than normal? We are going to dive into the numbers next. Then, the government funding deadline fast approaches. What Speaker Mike Johnson says is the plan for a bill and why it might not work. And later, huge amounts of opioid settlement money have been flowing to states across the country for 2 years now. But some states, like West Virginia, have been slow getting that money into the community. Why it is taking so long. Welcome back to the National News Desk. Here is a live look for you over Los Angeles, where nearby 3 major wildfires continue to grow in size. The largest and most active of the 3, the Bridge Fire, has increased to more than 54,000 acres. The Line Fire in Highland, California, that's now more than 40% contained, but still roughly 39,000 acres burned. While the Airport Fire in Trabuco Canyon is more than 23,000 acres in size. This one has destroyed at least 160 structures and damaged dozens others. 14 people have been hurt in this fire, including 12 firefighters and 2 civilians. The National Interagency Fire Center says that right now there are 55 active wildfires, having burned almost 2.5 million acres. So far this year across the country, there have been just shy of 37,000 wildfires and more than 7 million acres burned. That compares to the 10-year average of about 45,000 fires and 5.7 million acres burned. Legal teams for TikTok, its users, and the Department of Justice were in federal court today to make their arguments about the merit of a new national security law that could result in a ban of TikTok as soon as January. National correspondent Atrel Nashar explains what the judges heard and what it means for the future of the social media platform.
TikTok's legal team making its case before a federal appeals court that a new law threatening its future in the U.S. is unconstitutional. Earlier this year, bipartisan majorities in Congress and the president approved a law forcing TikTok to be sold from its Chinese parent company, ByteDance, or be banned in the U.S. as soon as January. They argue the app poses a threat to national security because American user data is exposed to the Chinese Communist Party, which may use TikTok and the data it collects as propaganda tools.
This code is written in China, and the determinations about how it should be changed, how it should be altered, which they say they do 1,000 times a day. They push up a new update. All of that is done in China.
TikTok points to the First Amendment.
No compelling reason justifies Congress acting like an enforcement agency and specifically targeting petitioners.
The company also says the government essentially jumped the gun and deprived them of due process.
They don't claim anything has happened yet. They claim there's future Chinese control, and therefore we can burden, in a very significant way, the speech of a U.S. entity and its users, which by definition is fully protected speech.
TikTok also argues the law just isn't realistic, that a January deadline for ByteDance to sell the platform is too soon. Complicating matters are Chinese export controls. Even if ByteDance wanted to sell, the Chinese government has said it won't allow the export of the technology behind TikTok's algorithm. The January 19th deadline falls on President Biden's last full day in office. Now, the law does give the president the ability to grant one 90-day extension, which, if exercised, would punt the issue to the next president. Both TikTok and the DOJ have asked the appeals court to issue their ruling by early December. Many legal experts say it's likely the case would then be taken up by the Supreme Court. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
All right, Atra, thank you. We are learning more about the final moments of the Titan submersible before it imploded and killed all 5 people on board last year as it descended towards the wreckage of the Titanic. The U.S. Coast Guard held a hearing on the cause of the tragedy, which gripped the nation and sparked a worldwide debate about private sea exploration. Here's what OceanGate's attorney had to say today.
There are no words to ease the loss endured by the families impacted by this tragic incident. But we hope that this hearing will help shed light on the cause of the tragedy and prevent anything like this from happening again.
Representatives of OceanGate and its former employees testified in the hearing. One former employee revealed that he was fired in 2019 when he wouldn't sign off on the voyage because he believed the hull was compromised. OceanGate did suspend all operations after that implosion. In 2 weeks, government funding ends just as Congress is scheduled to adjourn to campaign before the general election in their respective districts. Tomorrow, the House will be in session, and Speaker Mike Johnson told Fox News he still plans on pushing a continuing resolution to fund the government along with the controversial SAVE Act.
We have a responsibility to fund the government, and we have a responsibility to ensure that the upcoming election is safe, fair, and secure. And so I attached the SAVE Act to the CR, and we're working through having family conversations about the best route to get all that done. I'm optimistic we can do both things, and we have a duty to do it.
Optimism, sure, but even if the House passes the bill, it remains unlikely it will get through the Democratic-controlled Senate. Volkswagen is recalling almost 100,000 ID4 electric crossover SUVs, model years 2021 to 24. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says due to a circuit board defect, they could unexpectedly open while driving. That's because the door handles may allow water to get into the circuit board, which could cause the doors to open unexpectedly. Volkswagen dealers will inspect and replace the door handles and update the vehicle software for free. In your health alert tonight, we're introducing you to a man who's recently had his shoulder repaired and says it's given him back an important part of his life. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains the procedure that's helped him feel great again.
It's called a reverse shoulder replacement, and Dr. Brandon Kors of Ohio's Ortho Cincy let us go inside the operating room to show us how he replaces the shoulder joint. He uses the inset reverse shoulder system from Shoulder Innovations, which provided this animation.
It's called a reverse shoulder replacement because you actually switch what you're doing there. You actually put the ball where the socket used to be and the socket where the ball used to be. What that does is it actually constrains and almost turns the shoulder into a hip joint in a way, and stabilizes everything, allowing your big deltoid muscle out here to be able to lift your arm appropriately.
And boy, has it made a difference for Bill Walker.
I like to work on cars. I do. And you can't do that without both shoulders.
Now, Bill is back to working on his cars. This is one of his favorites. And wishing he'd had the procedure a whole lot sooner.
About 5 years sooner.
Dr. Kors told me that's a common theme among those who put off joint replacement procedures. So if you've been waiting for long-term results, here's what he wants you to know.
The midterm data on it is pretty good, and we've been really happy with how these patients have done as far as taking somebody who can't lift their arm at all because of a massive rotator cuff tear and allowing them to have good function of that shoulder.
I'm surprised how much less pain I had right away. I couldn't believe it, and yeah, and this is 5 months from tomorrow was the day I had the operation.
Dr. Kors says in those who do have this procedure,
And if you have horrible pathology in your shoulder, getting rid of that pathology and replacing that can provide significant pain relief right away.
And that was Liz Bonus reporting. Coming up, West Virginia, that's the state hit hardest in the country by the opioid epidemic. So then why are millions of dollars coming in from the opioid settlement still sitting untouched? We'll dig into that on the other side. It's been 2 years since huge amounts of opioid settlement money started flowing into states across the country. But in certain states, millions of dollars are still sitting untouched despite desperate need in their communities. Spotlight on America's Angie Moreski takes a look at what's taking so long to get these much needed dollars out.
This is kind of the heart of the house.
John Dower is executive director of West Virginia Sober Living Solutions and also a recovering user himself.
These are individuals that were at one point in a recovery home and experienced an overdose death.
He says these pictures on the mantle of his group home are a painful but important reminder that recovery is often a lifelong struggle.
To lose somebody that went through the same thing you went through and you didn't die and they did.
Wow.
It's hard.
And here in the Mountain State, it's been harder than anywhere else in the nation. West Virginia is a small state, but it's felt the biggest impact from the opioid epidemic. It has the highest overdose rate in the country, 3 times the national average.
Every day we're losing people in this state. We can't keep doing what we're doing, right?
Jonathan Board is the new executive director of the West Virginia First Foundation, a private nonprofit created by the state to distribute the bulk of its settlement money to fight the opioid epidemic. Nationwide, the overdose rate is going down slightly, but in West Virginia, it's up, with more than 1,500 people dying of overdoses in the state last year alone. Despite that, the foundation has yet to distribute any settlement funds, nearly $250 million in the bank so far. Given the gravity of the crisis here in West Virginia, should the board have moved faster? Should the state have moved faster to get this money into the community?
I think everyone wants to move faster. We're trying to balance speed with success.
West Virginia is not alone in having a slow rollout of funds. Besides this state, Ohio, Missouri, Oklahoma, Montana, and Hawaii are also among the slowest moving states to get money out to communities.
How serious are we about keeping people alive?
Alexis Plus lost her son to an opioid overdose and is now executive director of the nationwide advocacy group Truth Farm. She says time is being wasted while people are dying.
There isn't a single state that can have an excuse for not moving quickly on this epidemic.
We want to make sure we get money in the hands of doers today.
Board says the state wanted this to be a community-driven process, so they held elections for board members, which took time. And then the previous director resigned. Now, 3 months on the job, he says he's stepping up the pace to get dollars out the door.
We have to save our families. We have to save our communities.
It's a tall task in this state known for its breathtaking beauty and label as the epicenter of the nation's opioid crisis. For Spotlight on America, I'm Angie Moreski.
And coming up, it is a rookie season to remember as Caitlin Clark continues to do what she has always done, break records. We'll be right back. Well, the WNBA is in its final week of the regular season, and basketball great Caitlin Clark, she continues to do what she does best, which is break those records. In the Indiana final home game of the regular season, the heralded rookie set the new rookie record for most points in a season with a new career high of 35 points. This after setting the all-time league assists record on Friday night. As a team, the Indiana Fever set a new WNBA record for attendance, combining both home and away games. 620,000 fans have come to watch the Fever play with just one game left in the regular season. And that's how it's done. Thanks so much for joining us in this edition of the National News Desk. I'm Amira David, and we will see you tomorrow.